started on SQL. And today we just want to get to know, to introduce the topic SQL. And then of course, we will also go ahead and have the installation of the SQL so that of course we can get started on SQL. So SQL itself, it stands for Structured Query Language. So what basically it is a programming language that basically we use so that we can be able to, so it's a programming language which is used so that we can be able to manage, or we use it for managing and also for manipulating relational databases. So it is the standard language for relational database management system, what we refer to as the RDMBS. Yeah, that is relational database management system. So mostly you'll find that the SQL, it is used in the widely it is used for querying. It is used for querying, updating, and also for managing data in the databases. So that's actually what the SQL is basically used for. So let's get to look at some of the entails of what is actually in the SQL. So number one, some of the aspects of SQL. Yeah, so I think these others are just, it was created in 1970. The ISO standard in 1987. And of course, we've said that it is used for accessing and manipulating databases. So just before we get to what are the entails of what is actually entailed in the SQL, so yeah, just before we get into this, the types of SQL commands. So some of the key aspects which is actually entailed in the SQL, number one, we have got what we refer to as the DDL, data definition language. So the SQL itself, it includes commands for defining and also for modifying the structure of databases and their objects. So this includes creating, altering, deleting, or what we refer to as dropping. We also have got, so we have got creating, altering, and even dropping of the tables, as well as even defining the constraints, like maybe the primary key and the foreign keys and so on. Then we also have got number two, the second bit that we have is what we refer to as the data manipulation language. So when we talk of the data manipulation language, SQL provides for us, so SQL actually provides for us the commands that we used for, the commands that are actually being used for querying and also for modifying data which is stored in database. So this includes things like selecting, we have got inserting, we have got updating, and even deleting of records in the table. So that's actually what we mean when we talk of the data manipulation language. Then the third thing that we also have, we have got the data control language. So when we talk of the data control language, SQL, it provides the SQL, it includes commands for actually controlling the access to the data within the database. So this includes actually granting and also revoking permissions on the database, objects, and also to the users and the roles that are actually there. Then we also have got a fourth one. The fourth one is actually called the DQL, the data query language. Yeah, the data query language. So when you talk of the data query language, the DQL, yeah, so SQL, it actually provides for us the commands for querying the data from the database. So the most common commonly used data query commands are maybe things like the select, yeah. So we'll get to look at that, select, yeah. We also have got, it's actually, it's the one that is actually used most of the time, where it is used because it retrieves for us the data where one or more tables are actually can be accessed based on maybe some specified criteria that you also give to it. So like, for example, you can be able to say, select a particular data where maybe the data is greater than 5, or maybe even where a particular data meets a specific condition. So that is actually the DQL. We have got also a fifth one, number 5. We have got the TCL. The TCL simply stands for the transaction control language. So the transaction control language, the TCP, the TCL, I mean, the SQL actually includes for us the commands for managing the transactions. Like, for example, the committing and rolling back changes which are made to the database within the transaction. So of course, we will also get to look at those in the practical bits and that we'll be handling. So basically, we can say that SQL, it is widely used in various industries and applications for the purposes of managing and also for the purposes of analyzing data which is actually stored in relational databases. So it actually supports, actually it is supported by most of the relational database management systems. Like, for example, the different database management systems that we have got things like number 1, MySQL. We have got number 2, the Postgres SQL, the Postgres SQL. We have got things like the Oracle, yeah, the Oracle database. We have got the Microsoft SQL server. Yeah, we have got the SQLite. Yeah, the SQLite, among others. So those are some of the ones that are actually we can be able to mention. We can be able to mention that are actually some of the relational database management system. So that's actually what is entailed in the SQL. Any question up there?
I'm good.
Okay. So after getting to look at that, the next bit that we are actually going to have what are some of the data types which are actually there in SQL. So it's actually important to get to know the data types in SQL, so that when actually you will be dealing with the relational database management, you already know what are the types of data that you'll actually be meeting. And when you're actually creating any kind of table, yeah, you have to get to understand that what type of table am I creating? And this table, what are the data types that are actually, what are the data types which will actually be contained in the table? Like, for example, if you are having, just a minute. Let's say, for example, you're having a table that you'd actually want to create its database, whereby this particular table would contain maybe like the identification, which is actually the primary key. Then it will contain name. You have to get to know maybe for the name, what data type is actually represented by name. Yeah, that is actually, it will be represented by character or maybe a string. Then we have got maybe the age. Yeah, so age, yeah, which is what actually would be the data type of the age. So because you have to actually specify the data types that actually you are giving in your table. So that is actually what happens in the data type. So let's get to look at one by one what actually these data types simply are. So let's start with the first one, numerical. So when you're talking of the numerical data types, yeah, we use them so that, of course, we can be able to represent numbers. Yeah. So the numbers that actually we are referring to here, they can be different types of numbers. Like, for example, we have got the EINT, yeah, which this one actually simply stands for integer. It simply stands for integer. Yeah. So it is used so that we can be able to represent whole numbers. Yeah, so that's actually the what is actually there. The int integer is actually represented, so it actually represents the whole numbers. Then the next one, we have got decimal. We have got the decimal, which is actually given in this manner, decimal. So the decimal, we have got precision and scale, or maybe the numeric precision scale. It is used so that, of course, we can be able to represent, we use it for a fixed point, yeah, numbers, which is actually specified precision and scale. Like, for example, if you want to be able to represent a number like 2.34, yeah, in this manner, this is actually a decimal with actually precision and scale. It's actually fixed, yeah. Then the other bit that we have is the float, yeah. So the float, so the float, yeah, the float data type in the numerics, we use it so that we can be able to actually give floating point numbers with single precision. Yeah. So it can actually be float or what we refer to as real. Yeah, in this manner. So that's actually, we use it so that, of course, we can be able to represent floating point. Yeah. The floating point, which actually have got a single precision. Then we have got also the other data type, which is actually there, is we also have got the double. Yeah. We have got double. Double is actually represented that way. So double, or what we refer to as the double precision, we use it for floating point numbers with double precision. Remember here, we are actually having only single precision, but the double, we use it for double, for double precision. Yeah, so that's actually, those are the different numeric data types that you'll meet most of the time. Yeah, well, of course, there's also the small integer, yeah, and so on, the big integer, yeah, the bit as well, and so on. So those are some of the examples. All these actually, they represent for us numeric data types, or the numbers. Then after the numeric, we have got also what we have as the date time. So the date time, the date time data type, we actually use it so that of course we can be able to represent the date. So it's actually date and time data types. Yeah. So here we have got things like the date itself. So the date is actually used so that of course we can be able to represent date values. So the date values are given in the form of the year, Y, month, and the day is that month. So that's actually how we represent, or how the date is actually represented. Then we have got time. So the time, it actually it is used so that of course we can be able to give the time values. So the time values is actually also represented as hour, colon, minute, colon, and seconds. Minute and seconds, in that manner. So that's actually how we represent that. Then we also have got date time. Yeah. So this was actually date, this is time, but we also have got what we refer to as the date time in this month. Date time. So the date time, we use it so that or sometimes we find actually it is called timestamp. Yeah. Timestamp. So of course we use it so that of course we use it to represent date and time values, whereby the date and time values will now be given as the date and time values will be given as the year, Y. Then we have got month, M. We have got day, D. Then after this, we have got H, colon, M, minute, and colon and seconds. Yeah. So that's actually how we represent the date time values. So after the date time values, we have got the character or string. So the character or string, we use it so that of course we can be able to give characters. So in the character or string, we have got, number one, we have got the character itself, which is actually given as character, and then of course we must specify, yeah, actually it's a small n, sorry. It's actually a small n. So we have to specify the number that is actually there. Like for example, if you're giving name, which is a character, you'll actually be representing, like for example, name, which is a character, but of maybe a length of 255 in that manner. So that's actually what the N stands for. So it is what it simply means. This one, it represents for us, yeah, fixed length character string with a specified length. Yeah, the specified length is actually the N in this case. So that's actually what we have in the character, yeah, the character data type. The next thing that we have in the character or string, we have got variable character, the var char. It's actually given as var char in that manner. Well, of course, it also has got the value n, which it will actually take. So, of course, this we use it so that we can be able to represent variable length character string with a maximum of maybe n n characters in that manner. So it stands for variable length character. And then we have got text. Yeah, we have got text. So text, it's actually variable length character string with no fixed maximum. There's no fixed maximum length that it can actually take. Yeah. Remember the previous three that we've talked of, the car, the varchar, yeah. So you have got the varchar and the varchar with the maximum. They actually take in the previous two. They actually take in a maximum number of values that they can be able to hold. But for the text, it doesn't have a maximum number of a maximum length that it can actually that is actually specified to it. So those are the types of the types that are actually the character or string. After that, we have got the Unicode character or string. So the Unicode character or string, basically we use it so that of course we can be able to represent, yeah, the Unicode character. Like for example, you can be able to give like the number of character. Basically, it's more or less the same as what we've actually discussed, but of course here we also specify the number with the capital and just at the beginning of it, like ncar, varchar maximum, and n text. Yeah, it's more or less the same as the one that we've discussed previously. The other bit that we have is the binary. So the binary data types, the binary data type. So the binary data types, in the binary data types, we have got, number one, we have got binary itself, binary given in this manner. So the binary, yeah, so the binary itself, it actually gives us a fixed length binary string with a specified length, n. So we can be able to specify the binary with n in that manner. So that's actually the binary character. Number two, in the binary data types, we have got the variable length binary, yeah, what we refer to as the var binary. Var binary with n, yeah. So basically that represents for us the variable length binary with a maximum length, say n, yeah, in that manner. Then we have got also, okay, there's image, yeah. There is another one called blob. Yeah, so this one actually, it's the binary, it actually stands for binary large object. Yes, binary large object. So it's actually used so that of course we can be able to store the binary large object, or we can be able to store large binary data with the blob. Yeah, the binary large object. Yeah, the blob. So in that manner. So yeah, so that's actually what we have of the binary data types. After the binary data types, we have got other data types. We call them the miscellaneous, yeah, the other data types. So this particular other data types, here is where we'll have things like the Okay, there's glob, there's blob, there's the XML, there's JSON. JSON is just actually JavaScript object notation. The XML, you know what it stands for. The markup language, and so on. But of course, apart from this, the ones that will actually be you will actually meet. You may not meet these particular ones much often. The ones that will actually meet much often are things like the enum, which just it is used for enumeration, enumeration of predefined values. That's actually what it is used for. So basically, when we give enum, then of course we have to give like value 1, value 2, and so on and so forth, Then we also have got set. So set is actually used for predefined values. That's actually why the set is used. So the set will give set, and then of course you have to give maybe value 1, value 2, value 3, and so on and so forth. Then of course we've talked of you'll also meet JSON. JSON actually it stands for the JavaScript object notation. So we use it so that of course we can be able to store the JSON data. XML, of course, we use it so that of course we can be able to store the XML. XML simply stands for the extensible markup language. So when we want to actually store extensible markup language data, we use the XML. So these are actually the common data types in the SQL, but the specific data types which are available may vary depending on the database management system that we're actually being used. So it is important to refer to the documentation of the SQL so that, or the documentation of your specific SQL database for so that of course you can be able to get the complete list of the data types that is actually supported. Like for example, if you're using MySQL, it's important to get to look at the documentation of MySQL so that you get to know what are the data types and their properties that basically are supported with MySQL. So binary, actually, it just gives them the fixed length binary string, then the var binary, it gives variable length, the variable length binary string. That's actually the difference. The decimals actually, they have got precision and scale, or yes. So we use them actually for fixed point numbers with a specified precision and scale. That's actually where we use the decimal. While actually in the float actually we use them for a single point, no, for the actually not single point, but the floating points with actually single precision, not necessarily one digit. What we refer to as precision is not like a single digit, Can I explain it? Because when you're talking of precision, a single precision, it's not like a single digit, I don't know how to explain that. It's, single digit after the decimal point. Like let me just try to give you an example to be able to understand that. So let's say like we are talking of float, So in the float, basically, whatever we're talking of is because actually, it's actually represented as float. Sometimes you can represent it as a float or real in this manner. Float, or maybe you can talk of real. Real. So this actually, they simply mean the same thing. So let's talk of float. They mean the same thing. So when you talk of the float, the data type is actually used to represent the floating point numbers in SQL. So floating point numbers are numbers that have decimal points and can actually represent a wide range of values, including both very small and very large numbers. That's actually what we have. So when you talk of the single precision, the term single precision itself, it means, or it actually refers to the storage format which is used for floating point numbers. So single precision typically uses the 32-bit, the 32 bits, like um, 4 bytes. Yeah, so that of course it can be able to store, yeah, for the storage of, for the particular storage space that is basically there, that is represented by the floating point number. So the format allows you can be able to use wide range of values, but it's actually limited with the precision compared to the double. Because you see we also have what numerical data type, which is actually double. It's actually different from the double. So the range of the precision when we talk of the range of the precision when we actually talk of the float, yeah. So the range of the precision of the floating point numbers is stored as float or real, depending on maybe the specific database management system that maybe you're using, whether it's actually the MySQL or Postgres and so on. So in general, single precision floating point numbers can represent values with approximately 7 decimal digits of precision. That's actually what is there. So the range of the values can be represented depends on the exponent range, which is actually supported by the floating point numbers. So where we use it in like, for example, in the data types which are the data types which is actually common, where it's actually commonly used in are the wide range of values, which is actually when you actually require a wide range of values in the data point. Like for example, you are talking of like maybe let's just talk of 4 point, maybe 3, 2, 1, 4, 0, 5. Yeah. So in this particular case, you'll not use the decimal, but basically you'll use the float. Yeah. For applications which are actually requiring high precision, or where exact representation of the decimal value is actually crucial. That's actually the places where you'll actually use it. So it may actually be necessary to use different data types, like maybe the decimal. Like for example, when you're talking of the, let's say like for example, the height of someone, you can't be able to give height in a floating point. You just say maybe the decimal height is like maybe 1.8. In this particular case, there's no need of you using the float, but of course you can just use the decimal, yeah, which is actually having, it provides for you a fixed point arithmetic with exact precision. So that's actually the difference between an understanding of the float in regards also to where you can be able to use it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So generally, or in summary, what we can be able to say is when we talk of the float, yeah, it's actually the data type in SQL, which we use so that we can be able to represent floating point numbers with single precision. What simply means that, okay, with single precision, actually it provides for us a wide range of values of like maybe approximately seven decimal digits of precision. So it's actually suitable for applications where high precision is not critical, like for example, in the scientific or engineering calculations. So those are some of the areas we can be able to use the float. Okay, any other question up to there? So the next bit that we'll actually get into is the next bit that we'll actually get into is just a minute. So let's get to look at the functions of SQL so that, of course, we can be able to understand what are the functions of SQL. So when we talk of the functions of SQL, we can be able to use SQL in different formats. We can use it to execute query against database, to retrieve data from a database, insert records into a database, update records in a database, delete records in a database. So let's try to look at these particulars one by one so that we can be able to see yeah, so that of course we can be able to see these particulars. So so I think we'll just get into the entails of what is actually in there in these particular functions after we have been able to install SQL, so that of course when we talk of a function, we can also be able to get to look at how basically that particular function actually works in the SQL. So I think for now we can just leave it at this. We have got the functions we can use to execute the queries against the database, to retrieve data, to insert records, to update, and of course to delete. So basically when you look at this, delete, update, insert, and of course we also have got to create. Yeah, so yeah, so we let's leave it at this. We'll get to look at these particular functions much in depth when we'll actually be talking of after our installation. So for now, let's just leave it at that. So of course, we can be able to create new databases, we can create new tables, we can create stored procedures in the database, and then of course, we can be able to also create views. Those are actually the functions. We can be able to set permissions on tables, procedures, and views. So let's get to look at what is relational database management system. So what the RDBMS, yeah, relational database management system. What simply it refers, it is actually relational database management system. So relational database management system, the RDBMS, it is actually a type of database management system whereby it's actually a type of database management system whereby it's actually based on relational models of the data organization. So in the relational database management system, the RDBMS, data is actually organized into different tables, with each table actually constituting a number of rows and columns. Then the relationships between the tables are defined by establishing an association between the tables based on maybe the common field attributes. Like, for example, I can have different tables that, let me say, for example, I have got different tables that are actually in my particular database. Like, let me say, like table 1 contains the customers. We have got customers, yeah, in table 1. So the customers, basically what I have is maybe the ID and the name of the customer, yeah. Then, of course, it will be ID 1, maybe Charlie, ID number 2, maybe let's say Alex, ID number 3, let's say Benta, yeah, Benta, in that manner. Then let me say I'm also having a list of maybe some of maybe a table of the products that are actually purchased, yeah. So I'll actually have like maybe the ID, yeah. Then of course the product that basically was purchased. So in the customers, when I talk of the ID for a customer, like let me say ID customer number 2, yeah, customer given by ID number 2, which was actually Alex. Maybe let's say the product that they bought was say the product was like maybe cocoa, yeah, cocoa. Then let me say maybe ID number 3 actually bought a pasta, yeah, pasta, in that manner. So the relationship which you're actually talking of is actually in the ID, where actually we can be able to get back and actually review the ID from the first table here of the customers, and we are actually able to know the customer what actually Coco, let's say, like for example, Coco, who actually bought Coco, customer number 2, who is actually Alex, in that manner. So that's actually what we refer to us as the relational database management system. So we can have different tables in the relational database management system. The data is actually can be organized into tables where we have said that each table can consist of a number of rows and columns, and the relationships between the tables are actually defined by establishing the association between the tables based on the common field attributes that are there. So let's get to look at the key characteristics of the components of the relational database management system. Yeah, what are the key characteristics of this RDBMS? But before we look at that, we've actually been able to define what the RDBMS is, and we've gotten to look at it. So some of the RDBMS or the relational database management systems that we have examples, we have got MySQL, we have got the Postgres SQL, we have got the Oracle database, we have got the Microsoft SQL Server, we have got the SQL Lite, yeah, and so on. So yeah, so those are some of the examples that the examples of the relational database management systems. So we basically say that a relational database is the database where we can be able to store the data in a structured format using the rows and the columns. And we also say that the relationship between them actually we could actually also be able to define that. So that's actually what we have of the relational database management system. Let's proceed to the bits of the installation of the SQL. So basically we'll be installing MySQL to be able to use for the purposes of the relation the RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. So it'll actually be installing my SQL. So to be able to install my SQL, first of all, you'll go to the download site of the SQL so that, of course, you can be able to download the SQL. My SQL, so that, of course, you can be able to use my SQL. So when you get to the download of my SQL, just here, so come here and then, of course, my SQL.com. Then come to the downloads and then scroll down to the specific points where you are having your the download for community edition. Just down. Community edition downloads here. And then at this point, you need to download the MySQL installer. So you'll come to MySQL installer for Windows, because I'm a Windows user. So if you're actually a Linux, you download the one for Linux. Or if you're a Mac OS user, you download the one for Mac OS. So download for Windows. And then, of course, you'll come and choose the specific. So this one, this one actually here will actually be able to install over the internet, while this one actually will give you all the installations that you can actually be able to install. When you download this first one, you'll be able to install offline. Yeah, that means that even if you are not connected to the internet, you can still be able to install MySQL. So those are actually the points actually that you need to get so that, of course, you can be able to install MySQL. So I just did share the link of the chat. So yeah, that is in terms of downloading the installation. So after you've downloaded the particular, after you've actually downloaded the particular installer, then you need to go ahead and double click on the installer and begin the installation process. In the installation process, make sure that you actually actually select the particulars that you'll need for the installation. If you are installing it for the first time, you'll basically have to choose the MySQL workbench as well, and also the installation of MySQL server, because those are the ones that you'll actually need. Then, of course, you'll go ahead and set the super user and, of course, the password. Ensure that the password that you set is a password that you remember, because when you forget that password, it becomes so hard for you to navigate through. I think you have to create a new connection so that, of course, you can be able to use your MySQL. So just ensure that you are actually create a password that you'll actually remember. So then, of course, you'll go ahead and maybe run the installation bits. Then, of course, after the installation bits of installing the server, MySQL workbench, and so on, then you'll get to the bits of actually getting to start using MySQL. So I know the installation of MySQL is a little bit it's a little bit tricky. So if you just run into any particular error in the installation, do raise it early so that, of course, you can be able to get assistance. I think for today, maybe if there's anyone with any problem you encounter in the installation, we can just be able to look at that particular problem that you encounter in the installation. So, but that of course, that will be it for today. I just want you to take time to actually get to look at the installation bits, so that tomorrow when we meet, actually we'll begin on the relational databases, so that of course we can be able to understand much in depth of what is actually entailed in the RDBMS. Okay, any question before maybe we bring this to a close? So that of course, if there's anyone with an issue in the installation, we can be able to sort that out. Any question? So this is actually MySQL. So you'll so after when you reach actually this point, you'll just choose either the first or the second, not the Oracle database, MySQL. So of course, you just download either this or that. Basically, just say no thanks, start my download.